Welcome to the Medal of Honor Convention's 2014 Patriot Award Gala. Please welcome tonight's Master of Ceremonies. He is a longtime advocate of America's servicemen and women, the recipient of the 2007 Bob Hope Award for Excellence in Entertainment from the Congressional Medal of Honor Society, and founder of the Gary Sinise Foundation. Here is Gary Sinise.
Thank you. This is magnificent. Isn't this beautiful in here? Doesn't it look great? Didn't they do a great job? Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm delighted to be with you tonight for this momentous occasion as we celebrate our nation's greatest heroes and the evening's honorees, as we recognize the values they share that are embedded in the Medal of Honor: courage, sacrifice, commitment, integrity, citizenship, and patriotism. The Medal of Honor is our nation's highest and rarest military honor. It was created in 1861 by President Abraham Lincoln. It is bestowed by the President in the name of the Congress upon members of the armed forces who distinguish themselves through conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity at the risk of his or her own life above and beyond the call of duty. And as I have heard many times from these courageous, wonderful men I've had the privilege to get to know over the years, these humble patriots do not wear the medal for themselves, but for the fallen comrades who did not come home and for those who fought and sacrificed for it alongside them. It is now my honor to welcome our most esteemed guests, the 43 Medal of Honor recipients in attendance tonight. So I'm going to introduce each by name in order of military conflict and ask that our audience hold your applause until the very end out of respect for all recipients. So please wait until I'm done, and then we can bring the roof down. If you are able, please stand as I call your name. World War II, Francis Curry, Robert Maxwell, Herschel Woody Williams. Korea, Hiroshi Miyamura, Ronald Rosser. Vietnam, John Baca, Don Doc Ballard, Barney Barnum, Gary Bykirk, Patrick Brady, Paul Buca, Bruce Crandall, Sammy Davis, Drew Dix, Roger Donlin, Michael Fitzmaurice, Wesley Fox, Hal Fritz, Charles Hagemeister, Robert Ingram, Jack Jacobs, Thomas Kelly, Alan Kellogg, Peter Lemon, Gary Luttrell, James Livingston, Alan Lynch, Walter Joe Marm, Melvin Morris, Tommy Norris, Robert O'Malley, Robert Patterson, Gordon Roberts, Ken Stumpf, James Taylor, Brian Thacker, Leo Thorsness, Jay Vargas, Gary Wetzel. Afghanistan, William Kyle Carpenter. Ty Carter. Leroy Petrie. Clinton Romache. Ladies and gentlemen, the living recipients of the Medal of Honor. Now let's bring the roof down. Come on, let's bring the roof down. Let's go. That's more like it, Knoxville. Now I ask everyone to remain standing, please, for the presentation of colors by the Joint Armed Services Color Guard, the national anthem performed by the Stephanie McKean Quartet, and the Pledge of Allegiance.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Let's give our color guard and Stephanie a big round of applause here, the Stephanie McKean Quartet. That's cool. Tonight's awards dinner marks the final evening of an amazing 4 days here in Knoxville as we come together for the 2014 Medal of Honor Convention. And while this evening is really all about the recipients and our honorees, I have to take a moment to give a shout out to the next speakers, the co-chairman of the 2014 Knoxville Convention, Joe Thompson and Chris Coyne. When I tell you these two gentlemen have been working tirelessly for the last 3 years, day in, day out, 24/7, and around the clock, I'm not exaggerating. They have devoted themselves to making this convention the very best they and Tennessee can offer. Joe and Chris, you pulled it off and then some. On behalf of all of us here, I want to thank you and ask you to join me at the podium. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the 2014 Medal of Honor Convention co-chairman, Joe E. Thompson III and Chris Coyne.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Gary, thank you, and on behalf of all of us here tonight, I want to thank you for both serving as our Master of Ceremonies and also for what you do for our country's military men and women and their families. So please help me give a round of applause for Mr. Gary Sinise. I also want to thank our sponsors for this evening and for this convention, and give special thanks to the Knoxville community. When we started this process in April of 2011, Chris and I had a dream. We wanted the Knoxville community to play an integral role in helping to perpetuate the legacy of the Medal of Honor and its recipients. And through your support, that dream is now a reality. We sincerely thank the Knoxville community for believing in this dream and helping to bring it to life. For hundreds of years, Tennessee has been known as the volunteer state. In the War of 1812, Andrew Jackson asked for 2,000 volunteers, and 30,000 showed up. Service to our country is embedded in the ethos of every Tennessean, and this volunteer spirit has been on display this week at this great convention in Knoxville all week long. The Medal of Honor is about ordinary people. When faced with a challenge, give everything they got. And I'm here to tell you that this convention was our challenge, and we gave it everything we got. Thank you. The values of the Medal of Honor embody are the values that Tennesseans strive to uphold. It has truly been an honor for us to share our home state with you, our nation's greatest heroes, the Medal of Honor recipients. On behalf of the city of Knoxville and the great state of Tennessee, we welcome you, the Medal of Honor recipients, to our home. Thank you for coming. Chris?
So for those of you who were at the Veterans Luncheon, you'll recognize the stool is back. I don't know who built this podium, but obviously they didn't have the diminutive guys in mind when they did that. Before I got just a few remarks to balance out and compliment what Joe has already said. I'll tell you about a very fortuitous thing that happened to me. I'm on my way down in the elevator this evening, and my tie of some 20-plus years gave out, fell on the ground. Right, because that's what needs to happen as I'm getting ready to walk over to this place. and I met my guardian angel, a guy named Dean Kuchera. You at 23? Table 23. Dean says, no worries, I got about 20 black ties up in my room. I'll just give you one of those. Dean, you got a very special treat coming your way, pal. I don't know what it is, but I'm going to be praying for you heavily. Thank you very, very much. Very, very much. I want to echo Joe's remarks first and foremost about our generous sponsors. This week, this night certainly does not happen without our sponsors, right? I would like for all of our sponsors in the room, please stand and let us recognize you. You've given a tremendous effort to all of us, so please rise. Thank you once again for everything that you've done for us. I'm going to invite your attention to the screens during the dinner. We're going to put all of our sponsors' logos up on the screen so you recognize who they are. And on behalf of Joe and I, we would ask you to please thank them personally when you see them. First thanks I want to give is to the Medal of Honor Society and our new family. We've been with them now for about 3 years. They are amazing, amazing people. And Joe and I are incredibly humbled to be part of this legacy with them. Thank you, Medal of Honor Society Board, for awarding our amazing city of Knoxville this great convention. And I hope that we've done you proud in what we've done this week. I want to say a very special thanks to Joe. I was still in uniform, not yet retired, and Joe called me and asked me if I wanted to help him escort a Medal of Honor recipient to our school. And I thought that was rhetorical. But of course I would, and it ended up being Colonel Jack Jacobs, who's my height, so it was like a bonus, even that. Could look each other in the eye. Thank you, Jack. I want to say a very special thank you to the executive committee and the entire committee, volunteer committee, who have put so many hours into this, particularly this week, as we wanted to make sure that everything happening behind the curtain went very well. I know it's a little dangerous to name people, but there are 3 that need to be named, and so I'll beg your indulgence. Jolene DeWald, Patrice Collins, and Dino Cartwright, would you please rise so that we can say thank you? The absolute rock of our volunteer committee there. Thank you very much. Lastly, I want to say a special thank you to my family. My incredibly beautiful wife, Kelly, who's wonderfully supportive and has been our entire marriage, and certainly over the last 3 years as we've taken on this amazing adventure. And to my 2 children, Isabella and Brody, you make Daddy proud. Isabella's, I think, giving the mayors a run for their money tonight. I'm not entirely sure what's happening there with all the photos. And Brody, Daddy's going to have you back this week with video games, I promise, son. Ladies and gentlemen, right now, I would ask that you turn your attention to the screens. Help us observe a moment of silence as we recognize the recently departed Medal of Honor recipients.
Now to deliver the invocation is Medal of Honor recipient and Chaplain Gary Bykirk.
I don't know why they always do this to me. They show a video like that, and then they ask me to come up and try to see through tear-filled eyes and say something. But I will try. Would you please join me in a word of prayer as we ask God's blessing on our time tonight? Father, what a blessing it has been to be here in Knoxville these past few days and to share with our many new friends in a celebration of freedom, a time to honor, remember, and give thanks for those who have served and sacrificed for that freedom. It has been a time to experience a taste of Tennessee. Father, we have tasted, and it is good. Our hearts have been filled with a love for our country by countless numbers of people who have stood by the roads, waving Old Glory, holding signs of love, and proudly saluting as we passed by. Our spirits have mounted on the wings of eagles and soared as we listen to James Rogers sing to us. Our hearts have been strengthened as we spent time and shared meals with the Tennessee veterans, the Guard, reservists, and other military. Our hands, feet, and spirits have danced with joy as we shared an evening with Charlie Daniels. And Lord, our hope for the future has been renewed as we met and shared precious time with young people in schools and countless volunteers who have sacrificed and served us during our time here in Knoxville. Yes, we have tasted Tennessee, and it is good, very good. But also, Lord, as it has been said so many times here by so many people as we celebrate our freedom, we know our nation remains free not only because of the love, the sacrifice, and the service of our men and women in uniform, but also because of you, your love, your blessing, your grace, and your protection. So, Father, as we begin our final celebration of freedom here in Knoxville, we once more look to you. For you have told us in the book of Psalms to taste and see that the Lord is good. Blessed is the man that trusts in you. And though our hearts and our spirits may seem full from our time here, you also have told us that true fullness of joy and of love comes from being in your presence. So, Father, we humbly ask you to be with us tonight. May we be in your presence, and may you bring to our hearts the fullness of joy, the fullness of hope, faith, and love as we share in this final evening with you and with one another. May we leave here tonight renewed in a vision, renewed in a purpose for our life. May that purpose be a commitment of love and service to one another and to the freedoms that have made this nation strong. Father, may we leave here tonight saying we have been blessed because we have spent time with some wonderful people in Knoxville, and we have spent time with you. Father, we humbly bring these words and our hearts to you for your honor and your glory. Amen.
Well, now we enjoy dinner. So we call this a Taste of Tennessee. So take a moment to review the menu card to learn about the specially crafted menu from all parts of Tennessee, including the region's famous Granger County tomatoes and, of course, the Jack Daniels sauce for the steak. I'll be back with you shortly. Take care, everybody.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you would please help us and find your seats and please take your seats, our program will continue. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we are moments of starting the program again. Please find your seats. Thank you. Please welcome back to the stage, Gary Sinise.
Thank you. How about the taste of Tennessee? Wasn't that great? Well, let's thank all the people that prepared the food and served the food tonight. They've been working really, really hard tonight. So many extraordinary individuals here tonight. I've had the privilege and the great honor to support the Medal of Honor Society since 2007, and after the attacks of September 11th, began actively traveling in support of our active duty folks in Afghanistan and Iraq. We can never do enough for the veterans who serve our country, but we can always do a little more. These are our defenders, our freedom providers. So I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge all those who wear the cloth of our nation. So if you have served or are currently serving, please stand if you can or raise your hand so that we can all thank you for your service to our country. So it's time to begin our awards presentations. First up is the Bob Hope Award for Excellence in Entertainment, and is presented to those persons who, through their life's work in entertainment, have distinguished themselves by outstanding service to or positive portrayal of the United States military in literature or film. It was one of the biggest honors of my life to receive the Bob Hope Award for Excellence in Entertainment in 2007, so I'm happy to tell you about our 2014 honoree, Mark Wahlberg. He's one of the biggest stars in Hollywood and has earned 2 Academy Award nominations for his standout work in the boxing film The Fighter and for Martin Scorsese's acclaimed drama The Departed. He starred in this summer's blockbuster film Transformers: Age of Extinction, and other hits like Three Kings, The Italian Job, and Shooter. He's also an accomplished producer of film and television, including Boardwalk Empire and Entourage. A committed philanthropist, he started a foundation in 2001 to benefit inner-city children and teens. We honor him tonight for his remarkable portrayal of Marcus Luttrell in the film Lone Survivor, based on Luttrell's book that described the Navy SEAL counterinsurgent mission in Afghanistan in 2005, which sought to neutralize a high-level Taliban operative, but instead left 4 SEALs to fight for their lives in one of the most valiant efforts of modern warfare, and from which Luttrell survived. We ask you now to turn your attention to the screens to learn more about this remarkable actor and the story of heroism and sacrifice that he brought to life.
Shaw killed 20 Marines last week. 20. We let him go. 20 more will die next week. 40 more the week after that. Our job is to stop Shaw. And why do these men have the right to dictate how we do our job?
Rules of engagement says we cannot touch them.
I understand. And I don't care. I care about you. I care about you. I care about you. I care about you.
We can't do anything.
Look at that soldier.
They are unarmed prisoners.
This is not a vote. This is what we're gonna do. This op is compromised. We're gonna cut them loose, and we're gonna make this peak. When we make this peak, you're gonna get comms up. We're gonna call for extract, and we're going home.
Roger that, sir.
Roger that.
Roger.
We actually got introduced through Peter Berg, the director of Lone Survivor. And when Pete and I had been friends for a long time, real long time actually, right when Hollywood decided that they were going to make a movie about the operation that took place in Afghanistan. And then when Pete figured out who he was going to play to represent in the film, when he decided on Wahlberg and Mark came over and they started chatting, then he just called me up one day. He's like, hey, he sent me Mark's number and he goes, I want you to call Mark and you guys get to know each other. I went outside the barn here, sat down, and a grin on my face. The fact that I was fixing to call Mark Wahlberg on his personal cell phone, I guess. We chatted it up. We talked for a while and then been talking ever since. You hear nightmare stories about things that go on in Hollywood. People don't want to adapt to this or they don't believe in that, so they're not going to do it this way. Well, when Mark came on the set, and he had been in military movies, obviously prior to Lone Survivor, and he came out there and I said, hey, I know you've been in some military movies, and we talked about it for a little bit. And he goes, but I hadn't played a Navy SEAL yet. So when it came time to do the training, I mean, he was just he opened himself up. He was just kind of an empty cup, and he said, hey, you just throw it at me as hard, as fast as you possibly can. And he took to it. I mean, he didn't complain, not one time. He didn't balk at anything. I mean, we had surrounded those actors with Navy SEALs, so we were always watching them, and the training wasn't easy. I mean, we threw them in the deep end of the pool. And from the minute they walked on the set, live fire rounds, down range, moving and shooting, on the ground, getting up, running. I mean, it was tough, and he did a great job. He walked right through it. You know, he understands the sacrifices that everybody makes while they're over there. If we had to go back and do it all over again, there wouldn't be one other person that I would have picked to have led the charge in the filming of Lone Survivor and bringing this story to the world. It was an honor to meet you. It was an honor to be on the set with you, to watch you, to bring this to life. And it's still an incredible honor to be in your life and watch the things that you do after. So congratulations on this award, Mark. There's nobody else that deserves it more than you.
To present the award is Medal of Honor recipient Paul Buca.
Thank you. In 1994, when President Pat Brady, our president at the time, decided to create this award and establish it, there were people that asked, what is it between the Medal of Honor Society or warriors and television and movies and entertainers? Well, it's a pretty simple thing. When this nation asks our young men and women to go to a far-off land whose location they can't find on a map, whose language they don't speak, and whose culture they do not understand, they go. And shortly after they go, goes the entertainer. And why? The entertainer has the ability to bring a smile to a scared face, hope to a frightened and nervous heart, and perhaps most important of all, a brief moment of fantasy to believe that which they know is going to occur tomorrow might not, and instead they have the opportunity to be that entertainer, to marry that starlet, work with that young man. They bring fantasy to the battlefield, which allows you to make it through the night to the next day's hell. And what do we ask of them? When the war is over, we ask only that they portray us and the men and women with whom we served with integrity and with accuracy. We ask that they be honest. And it is for that tonight the Congressional Medal of Honor Society has designated this year's recipient as Mark Wahlberg. Ladies and gentlemen, Mark Wahlberg.
gosh, I knew I'd be a little bit emotional because I knew Marcus was sending a video message, and I was already a little emotional today not being able to attend my 6-year-old boy's birthday party to be here. But I tried to explain to him, my 3 other children, and my wife how important it was to be here. Just like I tried to explain to them when I decided to fly commercially to Afghanistan, to Kabul, to go and visit the soldiers in Afghanistan, before I ever knew that I would be a part of, or have the honor of being a part of telling Marcus' story and Lone Survivor. But I knew it was important for me to go out there and to say thank you to all the guys, men and women, that risked their lives, walk in a recruiting office and go out there and risk their lives to defend our beautiful country. I don't feel like I'm worthy to receive this award, but I'm certainly honored and humbled. I will tell you that. I look at a gentleman like Gary Sinise, who every time I see him on a golf course or an event, he says, "What are you doing to help the military? What are you doing to help our men and women of service?" And he's always inspired me, and he continues to, and I know that one day I hope to be deemed worthy, because I will continue to go into our community and encourage people to do as much as they can to give back, to help wounded warriors, to help people in service, hire veterans, and anything else that we can do to anybody who goes out there and risks their lives to serve our country. I had the luxury of meeting many wonderful recipients of the Medal of Honor, including Paul, who introduced me, and like on the younger scale, Kyle Carpenter was a fine young man and said he didn't want to waste my time or interrupt my time. And I just thought, wow, you have no idea how much I honor you, how much I respect you, how much I appreciate you, and how much I love you. And I'm honored to be here. And just one other little story. Marcus was saying all those wonderful things about me. Those things were not necessarily true when he met me. He, like most military guys, looks at you like you're some Hollywood, I don't want to use bad language here, but you're a powder puff. How do we do this, Gary? You're in the trailer getting your makeup on, and they're not respecting your resume. But everybody who was on that movie for the first time in my entire career, 40-some-odd movies, realized that we were there not for our own self-interest, but to tell their story. Everybody in Operation Red Wing and anybody else who had ever served, and certainly anybody who had suffered that kind of loss. And we had to earn their respect. And we wanted that, and we were willing to do whatever it took to do that because we were there for the right reasons. It's never happened again in my career since. I hope it does, because it's the only time I felt fully satisfied as an artist, as a person, as a father, as a husband, as a devout Catholic. It was really, really an amazing experience for me. And to hear Marcus say that, I was honored by the SEAL community and I was taken in as one of theirs, it meant the world to me, and it's something that continues to weigh heavy on my heart in a nice way. It's just unfortunate that I didn't get the opportunity to meet Mike Murphy, who received the Medal of Honor, Danny Dietz, Matt Axelson, everybody else that they lost in Red Wing, and anybody else who's ever served this great nation, and nations across the world. Anybody who goes out there and serves their nation, their community, it's a very special thing. It's not honored and recognized as much as it should, but I certainly appreciate that, and I will continue to impose my will to make sure that everybody in our community gives them the love and the respect that they deserve. So thank all of you guys for having me, and I promise you from this day forward, I will continue to do everything that I can to honor you guys the way that you guys serve us. So thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Congratulations, Mark. I want to take a moment to thank Visit Knoxville for donating their services to produce that video and all the videos about tonight's honorees. Our next award is the Tex McCrary Award for Excellence in Journalism and is presented to those persons from the Fourth Estate who, through their life's work, have distinguished themselves by service or unbiased coverage of the United States military through journalism. Tonight's honoree is CNN anchor and chief Washington correspondent Jake Tapper, who joined CNN in 2013 from ABC News, where he served as senior White House correspondent. His one-hour weekday program, The Lead with Jake Tapper, seeks to examine and advance stories that are making headlines from around the country and the globe, from politics to money and sports to popular culture. Jake Tapper has been a widely respected reporter in the nation's capital for more than 14 years and covered a wide range of stories, visiting remote corners of Afghanistan and covering the war in Iraq. His most recent book, The Outpost, An Untold Story of American Valor, debuted in the top 10 on the New York Times bestseller list and is one reason we honor him tonight. Lone Survivor, The Outpost is just like Lone Survivor. The Outpost is a heartbreaking story of personal loss and of exceptional valor, examining one of America's deadliest battles during the war in Afghanistan that took place on October 3rd, 2009 at Combat Outpost Keating, located in Afghanistan just 14 miles from the Pakistan border. During a horrific early morning assault, the 53 Americans there finally prevailed against nearly 400 Taliban fighters. But their casualties made it the deadliest fight of the war for the U.S. that year. In his book, Jake Tapper gives us the powerful saga of Camp Keating, from its establishment to eventual destruction, introducing us to an unforgettable cast of soldiers and their families, and to a place and war that remains so profoundly distant to so many Americans. Two of the soldiers at Outpost Keating, Ty Carter and Clint Romeshay, are here with us tonight. They received the Medal of Honor for their actions that day, marking the first time the two living recipients have received medals of honor for gallantry in the same battle since Vietnam. CNN's coverage was exemplary, and Jake's journalistic and personal commitment to these soldiers and to all Medal of Honor recipients is something for which we are all very grateful. He anchored two primetime specials on Ty Carter and Clint Romeshay, and he makes a point to cover our troops, veterans, and issues affecting military families on his daily broadcast. So please turn your attention to the screens to hear more about tonight's honoree and the remarkable story he shared with the world.
So I met Jake when he decided he was going to write this book as a project, and he reached out to me over the phone and also via email. You know, he talked to me about how on October 3rd, the date that the battle occurred at Combat Outpost Keating, and we lost 8 of our brothers during that battle. It was right around the time when his son, Jack, was born. And he kind of had this moment of realizing that as he was given a son, 8 sons were leaving this earth, and he really just wanted to know why. And he talked to me about a disconnect that he saw between folks in D.C. and what he said would be, the real army. And he said, folks talk about 10,000 troops here, 20,000 troops there, but what they oftentimes forget is that there's a connection between those numbers of 10,000 and 20,000 and the actual individual soldier on the ground and the sacrifice that that service member makes, in addition to the sacrifice that their family makes. And he made it very clear that he recognized there was a gap there and that he wanted to bridge that gap. That was the mission that he said he had, and to tell this story was a part of that. And so he's proven himself time and time again to look after us, and I call him an advocate. He's keeping his eye further off in the distance because he's got this idea about what the truth is, and he wants to make sure, damn sure, that he's going to tell it. I don't know what drives Jake to do it, but he certainly seems to be not only someone who's interested in obtaining and telling the truth, but also in showing the gratitude that he has, and perhaps maybe even a reflection of the greater American society. And I appreciate the reporter that he is for that.
Presenting the award to Jake Tapper is Medal of Honor recipient Gary Wetzel. And ladies and gentlemen, the recipient of the 2014 Tex McCrary Award for Excellence in Journalism, here is Jake Tapper.
On behalf of all the Medal of Honor recipients, we present this award to you. But most of all, we want to thank you for your truth that you bring in there to our homes. And thank you for who you are. God bless.
I assure you it's not false modesty when I tell you that sitting next to my wife over there and being honored by the people in this room, something is really wrong. I don't belong in that seat, and I certainly don't belong to be honored by the people in this room. It would be an honor enough merely if you had invited me to this event. And I could have just sat in the hallway, much less to honor me with an award named for the legendary Mr. McCrary. You know, it's nice to get awards. When my peers see fit to occasionally honor me, recognize work I've done, that always means a great deal to me. The respect of one's peers always does. But when a room full of men whose character has been tested in the direst circumstances imaginable, when they see fit, if Alan Lynch just said, "Hey kid, that was a good story," that would have been enough. But for this, it's more moving than you can imagine. So thank you. And not only thank you to the troops here and the Medal of Honor recipients, but thank you, as I have learned, thank you to the people who love and have loved the troops and the Medal of Honor recipients in this room. Because the parents, the wives, the brothers, the sisters, the children, I know you sacrifice so much too. So much for the 99% of us that prosper and thrive under the safety and security you provide wherever our politicians send you, unquestioning. I wrote The Outpost because, as Stoney said, there was some sort of moment I had, and it would sound hokey and I wouldn't even believe it if I hadn't actually written the book and I could see, no, it actually must have happened. When I was holding Jack, my son, hearing about the 8 other sons killed the day before he was given to me, or the day after he was given to me. Kevin Thompson, Joshua Kirk, Michael Scusa, Justin Gallegos, Vernon Martin, Josh Hart, Chris Griffin, and Stephen Mace. And I also wanted to know who they were, and I wanted to know what the other 45 Americans who were there fighting so hard that day under unimaginable circumstances, what they went through. And in the process of finding all of that out, some of these men and women became my friends, and I'm honored to know 2 of them who are here right now. 2 guys who I was told not to mention your names, but you know Gary did. So Clint Romachet and Ty Carter, thank you. You honor me with your friendship. Stony Portis in that video was very kind. The way I look at my coverage before I wrote The Outpost, the way I look at my coverage of the war it was glib. It was about McChrystal versus Biden and the White House versus the Pentagon and what are the numbers, how many troops are going to be deployed, is it 10,000, is it 20,000? Numbers that I bandied about like sports scores or Dow Jones ticks. But there was something about those 8 men and learning about them that made me see the humanity. And my eyes were opened by Cop Keating. So thank you to the men and women of Cop Keating as well. From 2006 to 2009, the people who were lost there, the people who grieved them there, the people who fought there. I interviewed more than 225 people for the book, and while the book, like its author, has flaws, I tried to make it as honest and fair and as worthy of the sacrifices that the men and women in this room go through as I could. I want to ask that the people in this room and all other troops that you can talk to understand there are a lot of people like me who just haven't had their eyes opened yet, who want to understand, who want to know, who don't understand why it is you do what you do and what it is that you go through. It was no small thing to earn the trust and the cooperation of the families of these warriors and their families. But I did. And since that time, I've worked to continue to cover issues of importance to the fighting men and women of our nation, from grilling Dennis McDonough about the horrific VA scandal to covering the decisions that are being made today about where to send our fighting men and women. Decisions that impact the men and women who, to me, are no longer just numbers. Please help people like me bridge the chasm between the 1% in this room and the 99% of us who enjoy what you give us. Help people like me understand, not just me as a journalist who wants to tell your stories, but me as a civilian. There are a lot of us who want to be of support, who want to know what you went through, and most importantly, want you to know how much we appreciate what you do for me and my family, for Jack and Alice and Jennifer. But sometimes, and I'm sure you've all experienced this, sometimes it's as if we don't speak the same language, civilian and the military. Help us understand, help us explain what you have done for us in ways that we cannot even fathom. Help us be there for you because God knows you have been there for us. Thank you, God bless you, and God bless the United States of America.
Congratulations, Jake. Next up is the Distinguished Citizen Award that is presented to those persons who, through their life's work, have proven themselves Americans dedicated and the ideals represented by the Congressional Medal of Honor Society. Tonight's honoree, David Faraday, was born in the seaside town of Bangor in Northern Ireland. He grew up with aspirations to become an opera singer. Great. Until he discovered a knack for hitting a golf ball. He went on to enjoy a successful professional career in golf around the world with 10 victories worldwide and earned millions in prize money. In 1997, Faraday retired from professional golf when offered a position as a golf commentator for CBS Sports. And thanks to his sharp wit and colorful personality, David has become golf's most irrepressible personality and a viewer favorite. He has authored 6 books, with several making the New York Times bestseller list, including his latest, The Power of Positive Idiocy. But David Faraday's most fulfilling activities are on behalf of badly injured U.S. troops. In 2005, he was part of a Thanksgiving goodwill tour to Iraq and returned with a new mission, determined to do something to better the lives of those he calls American heroes. He went on to found the Troops First Foundation, which works with wounded soldiers who come home without limbs or who have been severely disfigured. Using sports-based initiatives and a variety of services and events, Troops First works to provide meaningful assistance to those who have been wounded while serving in Iraq and Afghanistan, to honor their sacrifice and to improve their quality of life. That first trip to the Middle East and those that followed inspired him to become an American citizen in 2010. So please turn to the screens to learn more about this extraordinary American.
Well, David Faraday and I met a long time ago. We were on the tour together, and we ran into each other just occasionally on tour. But the real times when we met were after he retired from the tour, and he became an announcer for CBS. And to know David is to know that he has a compassion about things. First and foremost, he's compassionate about his family. It shows up with Anita and his daughter and his son. The second thing is his compassion for the country. David is a patriot. I went to his citizenship hearing in Dallas, and it was a wonderful experience because the men that he had touched, the wounded warriors that he had touched, many people in the military community came to that ceremony where he became a citizen of the United States. We civilians don't know what it's like to be in the theater. We just simply don't. David is close to that as a civilian. He understands these people, and I think these people whom he's helped over the years, they understand that he understands. That's the important thing about David. He cares so much about the hardships that these people have gone through in their lives and are presently going through in their lives. He becomes friends with them in the sense that he's there to help them, make them laugh at him, but also laugh at themselves. David he's a man of his word. These people who chose David Faraday for this honor, it's life and death with David. And he makes people understand that he understands, as a civilian, what they're going through. That's the important thing about David Faraday.
Presenting the award is Medal of Honor recipient Robert Patterson.
You know, when I was asked to do this, I'm a golfer. I'm real good. I think I'm good. I told David, I says, I'll be glad to give this to you if you promise me one thing. And he looked at me and says, what's that? Teach me to play golf. I figure if he could teach Bill Clinton, he could teach anybody. He turned around and looked at this lovely lady sitting beside him and started talking to her and totally ignored me. I think that was kind of a hint. You're hopeless. Mr. David Faraday. I had to do this. Thank you. It's amazing. Thank you.
I'm not normally nervous when I get up to speak in front of it. Why? I have this problem myself, personally. If I am up here for more than 4 hours, call a doctor. The first thing, I made a couple of notes, and the first thing that I would like to do is to thank Steph McKean and her little group who sang our national anthem earlier, because, and here's the thing, they actually sang the notes that were originally written instead of butchering it. And our Air Force brass band, who were just superb. Being up here gives me a keen sense, I think, of my own insignificance in the great scheme of things, which is something that I don't normally need any help with. And I'm reminded just at this particular time as an addict, a drug addict, an alcoholic, and I tell people I don't suffer from, but I live with bipolar. I'm reminded of Robin Williams and how much he was loved by our military community, and how much we will miss him. And I wish that he were here tonight, that's for sure. I tell all of the guys in Faraday Troops First Foundation that I too suffer from PTSD, but it's pre-traumatic stress disorder. I'm pretty sure something shitty's going to happen, but I don't know when. You know, and having grown up in Northern Ireland in the 60s and 70s, where it was a war zone, just outside Belfast, the enemy, they refused to wear a uniform. They hid behind women and children. There were sectarian murders every night. There were bombs going off. There were troops on the street. So it was all familiar to me right around the 2005, 2006 Thanksgiving tour, Morale, Welfare, and Recreation that I went on with my great friend Tom Watson, whom we've just seen, with Butch Harmon, Howard Twitty, Donnie Hammond, and a couple of other golfers. I thought, you know, what could I possibly do over here to make these guys' lives any better? But the reason that I went was I was upset reading the newspapers and seeing on the news just the negativity that these kids were being covered in. I knew that they were in the process of what I thought might be the greatest good deed that one nation had ever done for another, the liberation of Iraq. And whether or not you agree with the war, you've got to support the men and women who go and fight it, because we elected the government that sent them there. That's just simple math. That's the way it should work. And I went to have a look for myself. I thought, this can't be right. You know, every time I see a soldier, sailor, airman, or Marine represented in the media, that there's something negative about it. Well, I went, and I was dumbfounded. First of all, at the scale of the operation and what wasn't being reported, the restraint that our young men and women show on a daily basis when they don't pull the trigger, the compassion that they have, especially for the women and children of Iraq and Afghanistan. They act like Americans, which is one of the reasons that when I came home, I had to be an American. And in studying for the citizenship exam, I became kind of fascinated in American history. And my history teacher at school was a miserable old boiler called Cordelia Geddes. And I hated history. I wasn't good at it. I wasn't good at anything at school. And she told me that, that I'd never amount to anything. And so if she's up there somewhere or down there somewhere watching this, up yours, you old bag. And the most ironic thing of all was I became fascinated with history, American history in particular, because there's only 237 years of it. It's really not that much. And there was this guy called Thomas Jefferson, probably the single most important human being ever born, as far as I'm concerned. And I've read pretty much every word that Thomas Jefferson ever wrote. And I got to tell you something, he wrote a lot of words. He's the sort of president, I guarantee you, he did not have time to play golf. Yeah. What? So whenever I did my citizenship exam to become an American, I mean, I was determined to get 100. I knew the name of Ben Franklin's hamster. You know? And I did. I passed, and I remember, because I was born in Belfast, I could be British or Irish or both. And I was 32 years old when I realized I was actually Irish. I captained the Irish side that won the three-man world team championship, and when they raised the Irish flag, I got a lump in my throat. I thought, holy crap, I'm Irish. Exactly the same thing happened to me at my naturalization ceremony. I just felt, and it's not a political thing, it's not a geographical thing, it's an emotional thing. To be a citizen of this country after having spent so much time in so many other countries around the world, you know, it has meant so much to me since. And always I'm hearing people, you know, on the news and in print, whatever, people that would apologize for America. And I think to myself each time I hear that, you know, there's a way that they can make, even they can make this country great. They could leave. You know? They could leave. I don't want to take up any more of your time, but I will tell you one story. All of my events at Fairdy's Troops First Foundation are based on humor. Most able-bodied people are uncomfortable in the company of those that have been severely injured. It's a natural human tendency. You don't know how to behave or whatever. For some reason, I feel very much at home with people who are missing parts of their body, perhaps because of, you know, my mental illness or that I'm just not right in the head. I don't know. But I'll give you an example. Brendan Morocco was the first service member in the United States to survive losing all 4 limbs. And he came to my improvised explosive day of golf at Chevy Chase in 2010, a year and a half after he was blown up outside of Tikrit. And I knew there was a kid coming with no arms and no legs, so it wasn't difficult to recognize him when he showed up in a golf cart driven by his brother. So I looked at him and I said, "You must be Brendan." And he said, "How did you know?" So I said, "Well, you're not as tall as I thought you were going to be." And at this point, the people around, you know, they got kind of horrified, as they do. You know, they thought, "Oh, shit, did he really say that?" You know, it's like wandering off. And Brendan looked at me and he said, "Well, I used to be taller." So I thought, well, this is the boy for me. You know, I'll go even deeper. I said, "Well, just be careful today. You know, in the cart, it says at all times keeps limbs inside the cart. It's there on the sign there because we don't want you losing anything else." He looks at me and he says, "I can hang on with my ass cheeks." At which point the people who had walked off going, "Oh God, did he really say that?" turned around and thought, "Wow, listen to that kid. That's something special." Because by offering him the opportunity to come back at me, you know, I know that that's what gives these young men and women their dignity back. You know, I refuse to treat them as, you know, as invalids or to feel sorry for them. And it's not to say that I don't. You know, I mean, I can run faster than most of them. That's a huge advantage when you're, you know, when you're giving a Navy SEAL or a Green Beret a hard time. You better make sure that you're quicker, at least. But Brendan told me that week that, that he wanted to go to, we were congressional CBS, and he wanted to go inside the ropes and watch Tiger Woods. And I said, if I have to wear you like a hat, that's what we'll do. Great. So we got him in a cart and we got whatever, and it was his introduction to the American public was going down the final fairway on Sunday. Tiger Woods needed to make a par to win his own tournament, and I had asked him if I could roll. We were calling him Bob at that stage because he did all of his therapy in the swimming pool. That's cold there. Rolled down in front of Tiger Woods, and the crowd went absolutely berserk. And Brendan didn't want to do it. He's this kid from Staten Island that he felt like a freak in his wheelchair. And the crowd were so incredible. And when he turned around and saw Tiger Woods walking behind him and realized that the crowd was shouting, USA, thank you for your service, we love you. And it was like watching something out of Ghostbusters. You could see his dignity just pouring into him. And he was, his unit was called the Wolf Pack, 1st Infantry. I think he was Charlie Company. And he got halfway down the fairway, and he was in tears. And I saw his head come up, and he straightened up. And the next thing, one little stump came up in the air, and he went, ow! Like that. And I thought, there's my wolf right there. And at the end of the week, he said to me, listen, I want to thank you. I said, for what? He said, for being an asshole to me. I said, well, that's not a problem. It comes naturally. He said, no, everyone else is nice to me all of the time simply because I'm injured. Now think about that. If people were nice to you all of the time, even if you weren't injured, you'd want to punch somebody within 45 seconds. So for me to be up here and to be given this, I can't tell you how wrong it feels. Just like Jake said, there's something wrong with this picture. This is about me. I tell them, it's not about you. This is my therapy, being with you, being in this room with people that wear that little sky blue ribbon and that medal is the greatest thrill of my life. This is the most extraordinary experience for me. And to be counted with the other recipients and with Gary, I will never forget this evening. And it would be remiss of me not to thank the one person who is responsible, who doesn't mind or does a pretty good job of giving me the impression that she doesn't mind whenever I go to shoot with the Marine sniper or Green Beret or someone from the Navy or a Marine, or, I'm gone a lot. I'm gone a lot at my work, and I'm gone a lot when I'm at home, because as an addict and an alcoholic, free time is my worst enemy, and I don't have any because of you and because of all of you guys who have put your lives on the line, for civilians like me who could never, ever understand what it is like to be in combat. So thank you so much for the opportunity to be here and the opportunity to speak to you. And I'm so thankful that this isn't the wedding that I thought it was when I walked in this room. Thank you.
Congratulations, David. Now it's time for our final presentation, the Patriot Award. Patriot Award is the highest award that the society can bestow to an individual. The award is reserved for those persons who, through their life's work, have distinguished themselves as Americans dedicated to freedom and the ideals represented by the Congressional Medal of Honor Society. Their dedication to freedom evidences no limitations. Their love of fellow man is not qualified. Their allegiance to our flag, with the full understanding of its demands, is without reservation. The 2014 recipient of the Patriot Award is the Honorable Samuel Anthony Alito, Jr. He's an Associate Justice of the Supreme Court of the United States, born in Trenton, New Jersey, to Italian-American parents. He attended both Princeton and Yale law schools and was commissioned as a second lieutenant in the U.S. Army Signal Corps and assigned to the United States Army Reserve. He later served on active duty in 1975 and was a captain when he received an honorable discharge in 1980. He served as a law clerk for Leonard Garth of the United States Court of Appeals for the Third Circuit from 1976 to 1977. He then was Assistant U.S. Attorney in New Jersey in the late 70s, and next was Assistant to the Solicitor General at the Department of Justice in the early 80s. He went on to become the Deputy Assistant Attorney General, U.S. Department of Justice, and then a U.S. Attorney for New Jersey from 1987 to 1990. He was appointed to the United States Court of Appeals for the Third Circuit in 1990. President George W. Bush nominated him as an Associate Justice of the Supreme Court, and he took his seat January 31st, 2006. Justice Alito has had an illustrious career on the court and been instrumental in many historic decisions concerning American rights and freedoms. But it's his dissenting opinion on what's known as the Stolen Valor Act that is of special importance to all of us here tonight. The Stolen Valor Act sought to make it a federal crime for people to pass themselves off as war heroes by claiming to have received medals they didn't rightfully earn. When the 2005 law, which came after someone falsely claimed to be Medal of Honor recipient, was struck down in 2012 by the Supreme Court, the majority opinion stated that this was protected by freedom of speech. And I'm happy to report that just last year, President Obama did sign the act back into law. In that 2012 dissenting opinion, Justice Alito wrote that falsely claiming to be a Medal of Honor recipient inflicted real harm and basically stood up and said that military honor is worth protecting. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how Supreme Court Justice Samuel Alito won a lot of fans here tonight, especially the Medal of Honor recipients, and that he was not afraid to stand up for what he believed in, a passion, if you will, to safeguard military honor and protect those who rightfully earn their distinction in service. Please turn your attention to the screens to learn more about this American justice who embodies the ideals and defends the integrity of the Medal of Honor.
You can't tell a great deal during an hour or two's interview, but I saw enough that I knew that he would undoubtedly make a good law clerk, and that's how I met him.
I first met the justice when I applied to be his law clerk, and he interviewed me up in Newark, New Jersey back in 1993. The justice has always been a very focused, self-effacing person.
And Sam became like the first son I never had. I marveled at his judgment. He was impressive right from the start. He was intellectually aggressive. He had moral principles that I admired and respected. And his work matched his intellect. And it was a pleasure working with him. He's rather humble and unassuming.
Justice Alito is a man of extraordinary integrity, extraordinary accomplishment, and extraordinary character. He's someone who is deeply committed to the oath that he has made to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States and the United States.
Presenting the award is Medal of Honor recipient and the Society's current president, Hal Fritz.
It is my distinct pleasure to be the presenter of this award. Supreme Court Justice Samuel Alito is a champion. The Stolen Valor Act was a very important piece of legislation, an act that needed to be carried through, and he stood up as a champion. For those that perhaps are not familiar with that, and you hear somebody say, well, what's the difference if somebody wears a few medals? I mean, it doesn't hurt anything. I would ask you to look into the eyes of the widow whose husband was killed in Afghanistan, and the only thing she has to remember him are photographs and the Purple Heart that was awarded by the United States of America to her. That's the importance of the Stolen Valor Act. And Samuel Alito stood up when others backed down and said, that's the importance of supporting this and passing that. He is, in fact, a champion and continues to be a champion for all veterans and the people of the United States. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Supreme Court Justice Samuel Alito.
Thank you very much for that warm welcome. Thank you, Gary Sinise, for the great introduction. Thank you to whoever made the video of that really impressive fellow who I don't know. I think he stole my identity. That's far too flattering. Coming up here to speak after David Faraday reminds me of one other experience that I have had in my life. I was invited to throw out the first pitch at a baseball game in Philadelphia. And when I got there, they said, well, it's not the first pitch. The first pitch is going to be thrown out by a 12-year-old boy. And so he got up on the mound, and he threw a perfect strike to the catcher. So I knew this was going to be a lot of pressure. Now, there are cities in the United States where you could get up on the mound and bounce the ball or throw it into the stands, and the fans would be very polite, but not in Philadelphia, where the fans once booed Santa Claus at an Eagles game. So the pressure was on, and what I remembered was a line from a great Philadelphian, W.C. Fields, who said, if I get this correctly, that you never want to star in a movie with a child or an animal. But I had to follow this, and I didn't bounce it. It wasn't a perfect strike, but I got through it. But anyway, that's how I feel tonight. Supreme Court justices, I would be just that. I would be as funny as he is, but Supreme Court justices can't talk like that. So anyway, I am... I am very grateful to the Medal of Honor Society for this wonderful award, but I'm going to echo what has been said before. I must say I have never before felt quite as undeserving as I do when, standing up here tonight. The things that are done by us in the safety of civilian life cannot begin to compare with the heroic deeds of the members of our military. And so, really, I could not stand up before you tonight in good conscience if I thought that my primary purpose was to receive recognition from this group. Instead, I like to look at it like this. My primary purpose is to convey something in the opposite direction, and that is my profound admiration and respect for the heroes who have been awarded this medal and for the work of the Medal of Honor Society. Since my appointment to the Supreme Court, I've had the privilege and the thrill of meeting many dignitaries, presidents, other heads of state, even royalty. Tonight I had the honor of being introduced by President Truman and Mac Taylor. But I have never felt more in awe of anyone than I did at a dinner at the Supreme Court in March when I had the opportunity to meet a number of Medal of Honor recipients, and I feel the same way here tonight. I'm not going to speak very long. I was told that I had 3 minutes. That's less time than it takes for us to ask most of the questions that we throw at the lawyers on the bench. But before I sit down, I did want to say a few words about the stolen valor case that the Supreme Court decided a couple of years ago. I strongly disagreed with the decision in that case, which held that the Stolen Valor Act, as initially enacted, violated the First Amendment. I cherish the right of freedom of speech, but I was convinced that the Stolen Valor Act did not infringe that right. Now, a majority of my colleagues saw things differently, and I respect their views, but since then, as you have been told, a new statute has been enacted, and I have to be careful in not saying anything specifically about that law because it may come before the Supreme Court. But I will say that I fervently wish that we find a way, that Congress will find a way to protect the integrity of our country's system of military honors. Providing protection for those honors is important for the recipients of the military honors. As you were just told, I'm sure it is very important for their loved ones. It is also important for all Americans because a nation protects what it values most. So think of this. On the streets of you can tell a lot about a country by the things that it honors, by the things that it protects. So think about this. On the streets of many big cities in this country, you will not have very much difficulty finding someone who will sell you something that looks for all the world like a Prada purse or a Rolex watch for maybe $50. Now, I think most of the people who buy those items understand full well that what they are getting for that price is not the real thing. But making those items and selling them causes the luxury manufacturers to lose money. And so this is against the law, and it should be. But if there is no First Amendment right to buy a fake Rolex, why should there be a First Amendment right to wear a fake Medal of Honor? Which does our culture value more? I had the opportunity this morning to visit the East Tennessee Veterans Memorial a short distance from here. I'm sure that many of you have visited that memorial as well. It features granite pillars with the names of Tennesseans who gave their lives for this country. And recipients of the Medal of Honor from Tennessee are prominently noted. There are these pillars with the names of deceased service members, and behind that there is a high bell tower. And I was struck by what is engraved at the top of that bell tower. It says, freedom of speech. The design of this memorial makes a critical point. The America that we love would not survive without the freedom of speech, but without the sacrifices made by the men whose names are engraved on those pillars, the freedom of speech and all of the other precious freedoms that we have in this country would not last very long. We owe an enormous debt of gratitude to the Medal of Honor recipients. not just for what they did years ago on battlefields around the world, but for what they are doing for us today. They remind us of our loftiest ideals. They symbolize what we as a country value most highly. That is the message that the Medal of Honor and other high military awards convey. It is a vital message for all of us. The Medal of Honor Society deserves our deep thanks for keeping that message alive, and I am thankful to you for this undeserved award here this evening, and for giving me the opportunity to share these thoughts with you. Thank you very much.
So congratulations to all of our honorees tonight. And ladies and gentlemen, it's no surprise that preparations for next year's convention are already underway. We're delighted to have with us tonight Medal of Honor recipient and Medal of Honor Society liaison for the Boston Convention, Thomas Kelly, here to represent his hometown. At this time, Thomas Kelly will have the society flag passed on to them by this year's conventioners. So here we come, Boston. Oh, I'll be there. Please welcome back to the stage Tennessee's own Air National Guard Captain Stephanie McKean for our closing song, God Bless America.
To all our Medal of Honor recipients, we certainly hope that Knoxville has treated you kindly and graciously and that we've loved you and respected you. What we'd like to do at this point is join together and sing God Bless America. Now, if you're sitting next to your spouse and she doesn't normally let you sing, you tell her that the captain has ordered you to sing. God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above. From the mountains to the prairie, to the oceans, wide with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home. Beautiful.
Thank you, Stephanie, and thank you. And now, ladies and gentlemen, the time has come to bid you farewell and close out this very special occasion. The program journal, I've been told, is a take-home, so please do take that home. On behalf of the Congressional Medal of Honor Society and the Knoxville Convention team, a hearty congratulations and best wishes to tonight's honorees as well as all Medal of Honor recipients. Thank you very much. Good night. God bless you, and God bless America.